That guy's going to be some senator one day.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Jesse Hughes Show. As always, gotta take our sip of the chair wine here. It's a lovely night. Time change is killing me, but it's a lovely night. But what was not a lovely night was last night. Yesterday, we saw in New York, in New Jersey, and in Virginia, a historic walloping of the Republican Party, a rejection of Republican candidates, Republican principles, Republican ideals in these places. And it's left many people scrambling to try and figure out what happened, what's going on here, what are the lessons that we can learn from this to ensure that in 2026, when the midterms come around, we don't see a similar result. There's a lot that can be learned from this. There's a lot of lessons that we can take. There's a lot of things that we can try and draw from this idea, from this election. But I think two things primarily come to mind, two lessons that we need to learn. The first is that we are in the middle of an ideological war. And the combatants on the other side do not care about us at all. If you've been following the news, you probably saw that Jay Jones, the candidate, now Attorney General-elect in Virginia, had a scandal where he said that he wanted to put 2 bullets in the back of the head of the Republican Speaker of the House of Delegates in Virginia, and that he wanted that same Republican Speaker's wife to watch her children die in her arms so that they would change their minds on gun policy. He said that they were breeding little fascists, that they were evil people that deserve to die. Evil, worse than Mao, worse than Hitler, worse than Stalin. This is how the Democrat Attorney General-elect in Virginia views you, views your family, and what he wants to do to you. And, as what I was saying, Democrat Attorney General-elect, it has become unfortunately painfully obvious that that is what Virginia Democrats and Democrats broadly want as well. Not a single Democrat removed their endorsement of Jay Jones after this scandal broke. Not a single Democrat called for him to step out of the race. Not a single Democrat spoke one word of condemnation. Instead, all you saw were things like, this rhetoric is reprehensible, but Jay is a changed man. This rhetoric is reprehensible, but Jay is a good man. He'll do good for Virginia. He'll fight for Virginians. He'll fight for you if you politically agree with him. But if you disagree with him, he will fight against you. That is clear. And we thought, looking at the situation, okay, there's a good chance the Attorney General candidate, Jason Miyares, he might win this. He might pull it out. That's not what happened. Virginians spoke overwhelmingly and showed they do not care about you. They do not care about your children. In fact, they want you to die. In New York City, we saw Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic Socialist Muslim mayor candidate, have a very resounding victory as well. Lots of fingers are being pointed at Republican candidate Curtis Sweelaw for not dropping out of the race. If Sweelaw would have dropped out of the race, it wouldn't have made a difference. Andy Cuomo still would have lost, and Mamdani still would have won. And not a single thing would have changed. Jay Jones and Mamdani prove that we are in an ideological war. A war some of our opponents might want to go hot. In the words of Steve Deace, the Blaze commentator, worldview is destiny. And we are seeing that play out right before our eyes. Because you have two competing visions for this country, one rooted in its heritage, in its history, in its tradition, in its, up until the 20th century, national religion, Christianity, and one rooted in globalism, in death, in power, in ensuring that conservatives never have a seat at the table ever again. So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two, if Republicans want to win elections, they have to run candidates who are economically populist and also nationalists. Nationalism is very popular amongst our youth. That much is clear. You can't scroll X without seeing posts about reducing immigration rates, immigration moratoriums, denaturalizing some immigrants and sending them back to their countries. Ideas that I agree with. But you also can't scroll X without seeing talk about economic conditions. Young people are afraid that they won't be able to get good jobs, even with a college degree. Young people are afraid that they won't be able to buy a home, to afford to raise a family, to be able to even buy groceries. These are legitimate fears, and they are tied in part to immigration. But these are legitimate fears. And last night you saw that those who run on economic populism will get a large portion of America's youth to vote for them. Donald Trump ran on economic populism. He overwhelmingly won Gen Z. But then so did Zoran Mamdani. Some people might look at this and be puzzled. Some people might look at this and think, this doesn't seem right. What's going on here? It's clear. People want somebody who they think will destroy the current system and build one in its place that will actually work for them. And Republicans have been too afraid to go full force on that idea. They've been too afraid to enact the Trump agenda fully. And because of that, you get the blue wave that you saw last night. Now, obviously, New York, New Jersey, Virginia, blue states, you shouldn't be surprised when blue states do blue state things. But at the same time, when you have 13 House seats flip in the Virginia House of Delegates, when you have way wider margins in the statewide races than even the most expert of pundits expected, and when you have a man who said that he was willing to kill his political opponents become the top cop in Virginia, it's obvious that people are not happy with the situation that they're in. We have to get serious about strategy. We have to know what time it is. And we have to run on messages of economic populism and nationalism. This is the future. If you want to know how young men on the right think about the political issues of the day, look at J.D. Vance and some of the things that he is saying, and go read Pat Buchanan. That will give you a perfect glimpse into the mindset of the Gen Z male. A perfect glimpse. And then things will start to make sense. Then you will begin to understand what this is all about. Now, obviously, there are more lessons that we can learn, but I think that these are the two most important. You have to know what time it is. You have to realize where we are as a society. We are in an ideological, cold civil war. And we have a lot of people who want their economic situation to improve and don't see it improving because of immigration, because of housing prices, because of a plethora of issues. Economic populism and nationalism are the way forward. We have two choices in this country. Two choices. Christianity or paganism. We have two choices. Nationalism or globalism. We have two choices. Affordability or total state control. At the end of the day, people want to preserve American heritage. They want to be able to pass that heritage down to their kids. At the end of the day, it boils down to two things: Christ or chaos. Choose ye this day which you will follow. There's a lot to talk about this election, and a lot that I want to get into. There are many things, obviously, with the monologue and what I just talked about. Obviously, we got to know what time it is. We got to know where we're headed, and we have to know the message that we have to be sending. Now, some of you may be thinking, economic populism and nationalism, how do we know for sure that's the future? Are you just saying that? No, there's a few tweets a few X posts that I want to pull up here to prove that it's not just me speaking into a vacuum. The first one is from the Vice President himself, J.D. Vance, who says in this post, he says, "I think it's idiotic to overreact to a couple of elections in blue states, but a few thoughts. Number one, Scott Pressler, TPUSA, and a bunch of others have been working hard to register voters. I said it in 2022, and I've said it repeatedly since. Our coalition is low propensity, and that means we have to do better at turning out voters than we have in the past. This is obviously true. TPUSA and organizations like that are probably the most effective organizations right now when it comes to turning out voters. And a little bit of good news, yesterday we saw their work being extremely effective in a race in Arizona, a successful recall race against a rhino Republican who nobody wanted in office. So we've got to follow the playbook, the Trump playbook and the TPUSA playbook when it comes to turning out these voters. Secondly, we need to focus on the home front. The president has done a lot that has already paid off in lower interest rates and lower inflation, but we inherited a disaster from Joe Biden, and Rome wasn't built in a day. We're going to keep on working to make a decent life affordable in this country, and that's the metric by which we will ultimately be judged in 2026 and beyond. There's a lot of truth to that. Like I said earlier, there are improvements being made, but people don't immediately see their economic situation improving. And that explains why you saw what you saw yesterday. Third, the infighting is stupid. I care about my fellow citizens, particularly young Americans, being able to afford a decent life. I care about immigration and our sovereignty, and I care about establishing peace overseas so our resources can be focused at home. If you care about those things too, let's work together. These are very important. And notice what he brought up. There's a lot of infighting going on in the Republican Party right now, and I don't want to participate in that. I don't care to participate in that. Now, there's a lot of people I respect and some that I very much disrespect who are participating in this infighting. You see a lot of people who are calling out this conservative or this right winger or that right winger. We need to police this. We need to police that. We need to do this and that. And it's all so tiresome. Now, if you are somebody who has been encouraging people to vote in these elections, who has been trying their best to get people to go out and vote, to turn out, if you've been doing that, then sure, I can have a conversation with you. But if you are somebody who has not lifted a single finger to encourage anyone to get off the couch and go vote, much less have you gotten off the couch at all, if you are somebody who has not lifted a single finger to do this, I do not care at all what your opinion is on some podcast, on some group chat, on this thing, on that thing. I don't care. I can have a conversation with people who win. I can't have a conversation with people who are apathetic and don't care about the elections and only want to build their own brand. And that goes for people on both sides of that debate. I don't care. Either do the work or scream into the void, and I'm not going to listen. As Teddy Roosevelt once said, it's not the critic that counts. It is the man in the arena. If you are not the man in the arena, I don't care what you say. I don't. If you're not the man in the arena, I don't care what your views are on this topic or that topic, or who we need to listen to, or who we need to cancel, or who we need to promote, or who we need to not platform. Get out of here with that. You win by winning. That is all. The second post I wanted to share is from friend of the program, Kenny Cody. Shout out Kenny. He's been an amazing friend to me. He is somebody that has appeared on the show before. He said, populism can go two directions: Marxism through communist promises and failure to follow through on them, or American nationalism through GOP politics that actually deliver wins for the working class and American first foreign policy. Populism wins. Neoconservatism doesn't. Exactly what I was saying. Economic populism is the way to go, and it can come in two forms. It can come in a communistic form like we see with Mamdani, or it can come in a truly America First form like we have seen with Donald Trump. If the Republican Party cannot wrap their heads around this, we are never going to win. It's simple. We are not going to win. We need to enact the president's agenda, a populist agenda. And the only way to do that is to pass the legislation necessary. And right now we're hung up on a debate over the filibuster and whether or not that should be gotten rid of. I think at this point, we know the Democrats are going to do it when they regain power again. It's the only thing holding us back from enacting this populist agenda that can actually win people over. Just do it. Just do it. And the last thing I wanted to share on that front, Gabe Gardini, also a friend, young men overwhelmingly lean conservative when GOP politicians spend more time supporting foreign aid and necroeconomics instead of tackling H-1Bs and the rising cost of ownership. You get this. And he's replying to some exit polling of young men 18 to 29 who went for Spanberger by 14 points, Sherrill in New Jersey by 10 points, and Mamdani by 40 points. And of course, he's right. Of course, he's right. Like I said a minute ago, young men want to have a future in this country. They want to preserve the heritage. They want to be able to pass that down to their kids. But if they feel like they can't do that, they're going to vote for transgressives who are going to disrupt the system. That's how this is working. That is the dynamics of modern day young politics. We have to understand this, and we have to understand that framework and play by those rules, or else we're never going to win another election. So yes, we can spend all the time we want on infighting, on talking about Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. I don't, excuse me, I don't particularly like Fuentes, but if we distract ourselves on those issues and don't take these elections seriously, it's not going to matter how much we police our own side, because when the left takes power again, they will do everything they can to crush us. We cannot allow that to happen. We can't. When the left takes power again, they're not going to care which side of the Israel debate you are on. They're going to do the same thing to you that they do to the guy that you don't like on the other side of that debate. We have to remain focused on what is truly important. And right now, that is winning elections, that is lowering the cost of home ownership, and that is tackling the immigration crisis in our country. Not only the illegal immigration crisis, but the legal immigration crisis as well. We are letting in millions of people per year legally. That is unsustainable for any nation. And that is taking opportunity away from Americans. We cannot allow that to stand any longer. We have to do something about it. We have to do something about it. We have to do something about it. So you can continue on with the infighting. You can continue on with the old traditional way of doing things. You can continue on with losing. Or you can unite. You can work to get the turnout high. You can work to get people out to vote. And you can work to actually make their lives better. And you can win. You win by winning. You don't win by allowing the left to do whatever they want and then pearl clutching about your principles. You don't win by accelerating decline and trying to get your dictator style figure that you want into office. Neither of those approaches work. You have to win by winning. That is the only way. These election results were discouraging, but we cannot lose hope. There is still hope on the horizon. There is still hope in the future. But we have to learn these lessons before the midterms come up, or it's not going to matter. We have to learn these lessons before 2028, or it's not going to matter. We are very close to losing our country. We cannot allow that to happen at all. That is the autopsy report for the elections last night. And those are the takeaways. That's at least what I took away. And hopefully, if you took away something different, hopefully you see the perspective that I'm talking about and you see my point of view. Because these things are important. All right, let's move on. So there's a lot going on around the world, and there's a lot of people who, rightfully so, I believe, think that, we need to lessen our involvement in foreign affairs. And I typically agree with that. I think it's a good instinct to be skeptical of getting involved in some foreign conflict, foreign war, something that does not really have much to do with us. But if America is a historically Christian country, like I believe it is, I think there are times where we should stand up for Christians abroad. That is a righteous use of power and something that we should be doing. Excuse me. The last few years, our foreign policy has been all about making other countries fit the mold of the gay race communism that has infected the minds of leftists. 3 condoms in countries across the world. forcing LGBTQ radical ideology on countries across the world, forcing abortion on countries across the world. These are not righteous uses of power. But what is a righteous use of power appears to be buffering. There we go. In the country of Nigeria, there is an ongoing crisis of a genocide by radical Islamists against Christians. I want to read for you quickly an article from the Standing for Freedom Center talking about this very issue. Let me pull it up here. So in case and you can't see the screen, I'll read it for you. But the article is entitled "Christian Leaders Urge Trump Administration to Redesignate Nigeria for Religious Persecution." The group says that the Nigerian government must be called out as a religious freedom violator for turning a blind eye as Islamic terrorists and Fulani tribesmen continue slaughtering Christians and burning down their churches and homes. This is an incredibly serious situation. I'm not going to read the whole article, but I'll read some of it. More than 30 leaders of Christian organizations have sent a letter to President Donald Trump asking that his administration redesignate Nigeria as a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act due to the ongoing slaughter of Christians in the country. Reportedly, more than 56,000. Think about that for a moment. 56,000 Christians have been killed in the country in the last few years, and millions more have been displaced from their homes. Inter-Society, a Nigerian human rights NGO, reported that between January 1st and August 10th of this year, the year of our Lord 2025, 7,087 Christians were killed in the country and 7,800 were abducted. Kidnapping, ransom, rape, and burning of churches and crops by Muslim Fulani tribesmen and terrorist groups like Boko Haram are commonplace. During Trump's first term, his administration designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern, but that move was undone in President Joe Biden's first year in office. Throughout the Biden presidency, Nigeria was left off the list despite pleas from religious freedom and human rights groups. Now, this is obviously something that is particularly very concerning, very disturbing, something that should make Christians everywhere afraid and make them think that it should fill you with concern. You should be praying for your brethren in Nigeria. And I think that it is a righteous use of power for the United States to step in and say, we're done with this. And thankfully, President Trump has decided to do just that. Let's watch this video together.
Thousands and thousands of Christians are being killed. Radical Islamists are responsible for this mass slaughter. I am hereby making Nigeria a country of particular concern. That's a legal definition. When the Christians or any such group is slaughtered, like is happening in Nigeria, 3,100 versus 4,476 worldwide. What horrible numbers. Something has to be done. I am asking Congressman Riley Moore, together with Chairman Tom Cole and the House Appropriations Committee, to immediately look into this matter and to report back to me. And I mean, like, immediately. The United States cannot stand by while such atrocities are happening in Nigeria and numerous other countries. It's not only Nigeria, it's all over. We stand ready, willing, and able to save our great Christian population around the world. This is not going to happen. The killing of Christians is not going to happen.
I completely echo President Trump's concerns, and I applaud his administration for taking a stand on this. In a separate Truth Social post, Trump said that if the Nigerian leadership does not get this problem under control, we might have to go in guns a-blazing. I think that is the first time a president has ever used the term guns a-blazing when talking about a situation like this. Obviously, some people might be right to be a little skeptical of us entering another foreign conflict, but there are a couple things to consider here. First off, we have seen countless examples time and time again of Trump using threatening, harsh language in order to get a country to act. Because usually when Trump says something, he means it. Unless the country decides to repent and turn away from whatever the crazy, wicked behavior that they're doing and chart a new course. Some people might be skeptical of President Trump's announcement here and might be skeptical about stepping into Nigeria. But this is something I think is incredibly important. We are a historically Christian nation. We should be standing up for Christians who are being persecuted. It is wise foreign policy in my eyes to maybe take a step back from, foreign conflicts that don't involve us, that don't have anything to do with the American people, that don't benefit us in any way. That's a wise decision to make. But the persecution of Christians is something that I think is a little bit different. The persecution of Christians is something that I think is a little bit different. That we're a historically Christian nation. We are seeing in Nigeria a glimpse of what might happen here. What might happen here if we continue to allow unchecked mass migration. Obviously, we don't want that to happen. And we don't want that to happen in Nigeria either. We should be standing up for Christians. This is a great move by the Trump administration. I applaud it. And something that we should all be celebrating. The purpose of the government, as laid out in Romans 13, is to promote what is good and to be a terror to those who do evil. Now, obviously, the first priority should be to do that at home for citizens. The government should be promoting the good. It should be promoting families. It should be promoting Christianity. It should be promoting things that actually improve our lives and are good for the public welfare. And it should be a terror to evildoers. It should crack down on crime, and it should ensure that evils like abortion are no longer practiced in this country. However, we should also be promoting the good in nations where Christians are being persecuted. Christianity is a good thing. We should be promoting that in Nigeria, and we should be standing against the evildoers in Nigeria and being a terror to them. Islam has been a great enemy of the West for over 1,500 years. We should be standing against it. Not only by not allowing Muslim migrants into our country anymore, but also by stopping the genocide of Christians in Nigeria. This is something that is of particular concern to me and should be of particular concern to you if you are a follower of Christ, and something that we should not stand for. All right. For our final segment of the night, I decided to open up for questions for an Ask Me Anything. Now, I've got a couple of questions here, but if you're watching, if you have a question for me on anything, any topic, anything you want to know about, drop it in the chat. Let me see it, and I will try to get a hold of that question and answer it for you. So we've got a few questions here already. I need to pull up something for this one. Bear with me for one moment. I should have done this before the show, but you know what? It's just how it is. So, Let me find this. My apologies for the delay. So the first question that we have is about college football, which is something that you guys know that I am a little passionate about. So the first question I have is, who do you have winning the Jack State versus Kennesaw State game, and who do you have winning CUSA? Well, as of right now, Kennesaw State is 6-2. This game is in a couple of weeks. Kennesaw State is 6-2. Jack State is 5-3. Kennesaw State has a passing yard advantage, a receiving yard advantage. I don't believe that there is a line on the game yet. There's not. But just looking at some of what's been happening, I lean Kennesaw in this game. I'm not 100% sure, but I lean Kennesaw in this game. I think CUSA is up for grabs. I would probably lean towards Kennesaw if they win. I think the winner of this game probably wins the conference. So Jack State or Kennesaw State. We'll see. Second question. That's a troll question. I'm not going for that. So this question I think is kind of a troll question, but I'm still going to talk about it. Somebody asked me, are Erica Kirk and JD Vance in a romantic relationship? No. Short answer, no. There is this ridiculous theory floating around online about Erica Kirk and JD Vance because guess what? A grieving widow gave one of her husband's best friends a hug at an event where they were talking about her husband, and people lost their minds over the situation. I think it's utterly ridiculous. I think it's something stupid, not something we should be paying attention to. No, they're not in a romantic relationship. Last question, or two more questions. Strategies for 2026. Well, I mean, I kind of went over it already. We got a comment in the chat. There's only one way forward for the GOP, populist and paleo conservatism. I largely agree with that. You need economic populism and you need nationalism, and we need to nuke the filibuster and actually get the pass and get people's lives better. And we need to be running on policies that we can show will improve those people's lives. In terms of strategy, you got to get the messaging on point and have policy to actually back it up. And you have to be able to turn out the vote. And you have to get people actually off the couch and to the voting booth. It's either Buchananism or barbarism. Completely agree. Go read Pat Buchanan. I completely agree. Again, if you have any questions for me, please drop them in the chat down below. I will answer any question. But back to strategies for 2026, which was a question. You have to copy the framework of the Trump administration and of TPUSA in the 24 election. And you have to target the low propensity voters and actually give them a reason to go vote. You know, if you're running the same old GOP playbook of free markets and traditional values, which I love traditional values. Don't get the wrong understanding from this. But if you just keep running that playbook over and over again and you ignore the changes that Trump made to the party, you're not going to win. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You have to actually run on the things that are popular and that people care about. And you have to get that messaging out there. And you have to get these low propensity voters off the couch, and that's how you do it. And, you know, if you want to get involved, I would obviously, I love getting involved in these things. Go door knock. Go sign up to go door knocking. Go make phone calls. Literally, I'm not being sponsored or anything to say this, but I'm plugging the TP Action app. If you go download the TP Action app, you can make phone calls, you can get a walk book, you can even just send text messages. I sat in class the other day. Sorry to my professor if he's watching this. I sat in class the other day and literally was just texting voters all throughout class, because these things are important. You have to get involved to make a difference, and you have to get people to get involved if they're actually going to vote in the elections and make the difference that we want to see. That's the way forward. That's the strategy. Get involved, get good messaging, and get people off the couch. That's how you win. The last question I have right here is, why should a young man be worried about a dinner invitation being a litmus test when asking that question is leaked to the internet? Now, if you don't know what that is in reference to, earlier today, so after the whole fallout with the Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes interview, which I'm just over at this point, Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation came out and gave us support, saying, we're not canceling Tucker. I don't like Fuentes. I don't like what he says, but we're not canceling Tucker. He's a friend of the Heritage Foundation. And he obviously got a lot of blowback for that. And he's kind of walked the statements back a little bit since then. And then earlier today, it was either today or yesterday, I believe it was today, there was a open forum with Kevin Roberts and the employees of Heritage. And one of the things that got brought up, I don't know the full context behind this, but apparently there was something about a recommendation in a Heritage email for people to attend a Shabbat dinner. Now, if you don't know what Shabbat is, it's the Jewish Sabbath. And a man who works for Heritage Foundation, who is a Catholic, asked a question about that, saying, it was against his religious principle to participate in the religious practices of different religions. Totally understandable conviction, and something that, I would be uncomfortable. Whether it was Jewish, whether it was Muslim, whether it was Hindu, I would be uncomfortable going and participating in something that was a central tenet of a different religion than me. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe he is the Lord and Savior. And other religions don't believe that, and so it would be kind of uncomfortable to go participate in their practices and ceremonies. And this somehow was leaked to the press and was put out all over X, and people have been dogpiling on this guy, calling him anti-Semitic. It's totally ridiculous stuff. It's not anti-Semitic to be a Christian and be opposed to the idea of going and practice and engaging in another faith's religious practices. It's just not. Maybe you don't have that same conviction, and that's fine. But you respect the dude. Come on. I hate to play imagine if the roles were reversed, but think for a second. If the roles were reversed in this situation, and it was a Jewish individual that was invited to participate in a Christian celebration or a Christian practice or whatever, and they said that they were uncomfortable with that idea, nobody would be blasting that person. But because it's the other way around, we are getting this circus, absolute circus online. And we wonder why we keep losing when we're so caught up in the infighting. We wonder why we keep losing. It's just ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And I don't understand how this is important. Listen, if you actually hate someone because of the color of their skin or the fact that they practice a different faith or that they belong to a different ethnicity or a different group, yes, that is one thing. But when you have people that are just sniffing and looking and trying to find anti-Semitism wherever they can find it, you get stuff like this. And it's just, to me, it's ridiculous. To me, it's just a little bit ridiculous. And I I don't know why people keep doing this. All right. That was the last question that I had from that. And again, I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes. So if you have any questions, please drop them below, drop them in the chat. I will get to them. I will answer a question about anything. Those the most hurt are Americans of color. Immigration hurts POC.com. Okay, I've never seen that website before. I'll have to check it out later. I mean, there's probably some truth to that. There's probably a lot of truth to that. I mean, Americans generally are hurt by immigration. You know, I don't like making things about race or this or that or the other. I mean, I'm sure there is some truth to that. But, I mean, Americans generally are hurt by immigration, no matter what background you're from. If you have a history and a heritage in this country, unchecked mass immigration is going to hurt you. And that's just something that we need to focus on, and we need to push, and we need to be out in front of this issue. You know, I advocated today, I think it was today, for 3 points that I think are poignant. Number 1, I think that there needs to be an immigration moratorium for at least 15 to 20 years, at least. You can't stop a leak if the water is still running. You gotta stop the flow. And so I think that the only way we're really going to deal with this is by having an immigration moratorium. Second, during the time that we have that moratorium, there are people in this country who immigrated here who are refusing to assimilate, who hate us, who hate our values, who hate our system, who hate America. Look at Zoran Mamdani. And so you have to have that moratorium. And during the time you have to have that moratorium, you have to focus on immigration resources in the country, the judges, the lawyers, everything like that. You have to focus them on one thing, and that is reviewing naturalizations. Anyone who has been naturalized in the United States since the Hart-Celler Act, which opened the floodgates to this insanity, their naturalization needs to be reviewed. And that will include me. All right? A lot of y'all might not realize this. I wasn't born here. I was adopted from another country. I was adopted from Russia. It's something I talk about a lot. Review me and everyone else who was naturalized after the passage of the Hart-Celler Act. And if there are people who are espousing explicitly anti-American sentiment and who are refusing to assimilate to American values, they need to be denaturalized and removed from this country. It needs to happen. It needs to happen. And then the third point on that was, if by the end of the 15 or 20 years of the moratorium, we haven't finished goal number 2, extend the moratorium until we do. That's what we got to do. Immigration is one of those things that it's a hard issue to talk about because it affects people. But at the end of the day, the government's first responsibility is to its citizens. And if there is something that is hurting its citizens, it needs to step in and figure out what the heck is going on. And it needs to step in and change that. All right. Well, there are no other questions rolling in. I've kind of covered everything I wanted to cover tonight. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, for watching. I appreciate it. God loves you, and so do I. I hope you have a great night, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you again so much. Pray for our nation. Pray for our nation because we need it. Thank you, and God bless.